We're back here on the Splash Play NBA channel with a 7-game NBA slate. And stop me if you heard this one before. We do, in fact, have a lot of questionable tags. Guys are going to be very important to slate. We don't know the status of yet. But as always, we're going to do what we always do here. Prepare as best we can. Preparing my projections, some of the industry leaders out there like Stokastic and like our friends at Unabated. Of course, we're going to get the best bets from Unabated, see what's good right now in your pickup sites, your top sports books. Also run some DFS sims, see what's going on in Stokastic with their top ROI lineups. But in this video, the must plays along with the splash plays for today's slate. Let's get into it. I got some of the expected chats here. Spags and J-Val brothers. I kind of think we also look a little bit like a gay couple in the thumbnail. I feel like maybe not fully, but I could see the resemblance. I think the eyes, maybe. He's definitely got more beard than I do. That for sure is the case, but that's not really relevant to Slate. What is relevant to Slate? The guys with all the Q tags, of course, today's questionable tag tweet on Underdog. We got John Morant, Alperen Sengun, Paul George, Amin Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Dylan Brooks, Colin Sexton, Kelly Oubre, your main Q tag guys. Doubtful, John Collins, also out for Utah. You have Lowry Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson not playing today. Questionable tag for Colin Sexton as well, as we mentioned here. So Utah, your key game right now with a lot of moving parts there. But there's a lot of moving parts in general on the slate. And frankly, some of the guys that are not even a Q tag right now, wouldn't shock you to see them get ruled out today. So it's going to be a very newsy slate, it seems. So we round into tanking form here for many teams already. Top projected players, though, according to me right now, number one is Cade Cunningham. I've got a 50.5 projection. Stochastic has been 51.9. You have basically at this point no Tobias Harris for the team. Still no Jaden Ivey for the rest of the year. So that is really what's making Cade Cunningham look best here, along with the fact that they are facing Utah, not a great team. A pretty good spread as well, favoring Detroit on the road. Detroit favored by 11 points. So that's basically where you are for Cade. Maybe an expectation here that Utah doesn't keep it competitive, but with 11 points spread, that really doesn't scream blowout in the way people might expect and might play this game. So Cade Cunningham looking good, 25% of the field there, though. I'm only at 8%. Some other players are drawing my salary instead. And do appreciate all the chats. We got some alohas. We got some what's up. We got some bring on the puppet once in a while. The puppet is a special bit. I don't know. I'm not going to do things every day. You don't drive things into the ground. It's rule number one. Love me some Beasley as well. And it's a long chat from Chris. Maybe we'll get to that in a moment. SGA, number two projected for me. I am about 4 fantasy points lower. I guess 3.5 if you want to be accurate to the decimal point. Lower in Stokastic's 52.1 projection. Getting only 2% of my top 150 lineups fields at 6%. Over the weekend, you had Jalen Williams having a real-life 40-point game. Maybe you see SGA claim a little bit back today. Sort of the push-pull dynamic of how this goes. Game to game for the most part. For SGA here, really think the main thing is that he is your pay-up option on the slate. You don't have your Jokic's, your Giannis's, etc. So SGA is your top dollar guy. You can go there, but I would prefer Cade by a little bit here in my projection set. Less ownership for SGA, though, by a pretty wide margin, with, again, Cade at 25% projected owned and SGA at 6%. Trae Young, 12% for the field. I'm getting him at 8% here. Trae Young, same thing we always talk about with the Hawks, where Trae Young doesn't gain quite as much in terms of the opportunity, really the upside that he gets from having some of the Hawks no longer available. Your DeAndre Hunters, of course, your Bogdan Bogdanovich's, guys who got traded, Jalen Johnson, no longer on the team for the year with his injury. Basically, for the Hawks, it has been a bigger thing for Dyson Daniels, for some of the other guys. That said, I didn't touch the Hawks rates today because basically, if I adjust the rates to reflect what they are, which Trae Young basically averages 1.1 fantasy points a minute without the aforementioned guys and Vic Krejci, who's still out with his back injury. He's really been not a good player with the various secondary Hawks pieces from the beginning of the year not available. For Trae, though, if I were to give him the rates that he's had, I basically wouldn't get him at all. And the fact that they're playing Memphis, really high total game. I don't want to get zero Trae Young. So as it is right now, I'm getting 8% Trae Young. The field's at 12%. But it's worth pointing out, like, he's been legit really not good this year with some of the guys no longer available for the Hawks, including Georgie Yang, who's out tonight as well. Trae Young legit averaging 1.1 fantasy points a minute. I'm saying legit too much, but like blows my mind he's been this bad from some of the guys around him. And maybe it's because other guys can get their shot more. They don't need Trae to set him up. But Dyson Daniels averages 1.07 points per minute, or fantasy points per minute, that same court time. The Trae Young's averaging 1.1. Yuko Okongwu's averaging 1.2. So, like, the other guys meaningfully benefit with the players not available for the Hawks, and Trae Young gets worse, and it's usually a situation I try to not go too crazy about and try to avoid a little bit more if I can. We got Kyrie Irving here, 10% for me, 8% for the field. Steph Curry, 5% and 5%, so no big stands there. Tyler here, a little bit above the field. Bam Adebayo, more above the field here. No Kel'el Ware for Miami. Really should open up some more minutes at the 4 overall. Makes Bam's minutes a little bit more secure, where if Kel'el Ware were running hot, sometimes he could take a few minutes away from Bam at the 5. But really opens up more rebounds. Projection's going to gain a little bit more for Bam Adebayo because you're missing a pretty productive player in Ware. So Bam Adebayo looking good to me at 8,400 and getting him in 29% of lineups. Fields at 19%. Tyrese Maxey at half the field. Fields playing him at 21% with Joel Embiid out for the year now. Paul George has been looking a little bit better overall. Quentin Grimes went for 40 real life points over the weekend. I think 60 fantasy points in that spot. He certainly would be a guy where if he goes back to normal, Tyrese Maxey should be able to get more shots up today. I have no issue with Maxey, but I am at about half the field of him, and I would be a lot higher, unfortunately, as I pretty much always am on Quentin Grimes. Zach LaVine looks like the big winner for Sacramento overall. You have no Sabonis out there. Obviously, you've traded De'Aaron Fox as well. Court time this year without those two guys for the Kings, and obviously Zach LaVine has not seen life with De'Aaron Fox. They got traded for each other. LaVine's averaged 1.3 fantasy points a minute, about 225 possessions. So about half the sample size we'd want to see to feel really good about that number. But LaVine putting up 31% usage in court time without Sabonis basically be the main thing for him. A 16% assist rate. Malik Monk in court time without Sabonis and without Fox actually comes down a little bit, goes down to 0.99 fantasy points per minute. I would assume because DeRozan takes more usage. DeRozan gets up to 29% usage and a 30% assist rate, along with 1.15 fantasy points per minute. Kind of like we talked about the Hawks. I think people will assume that, oh, Trae Young must benefit from these various Hawks players being out. People assume, oh, Malik Monk must benefit from Fox and also from Sabonis being out. But in reality, it looks like actually the lineup kind of veers a little bit more towards LaVine, a little bit more towards DeRozan. So LaVine, to me, looking like a very good play today, getting him at 3x the field, a little bit more than that. DeMar DeRozan, getting him also 3x the field. Again, same thing here for both guys we just talked about. All right, now let's check some chats. Had a bad week in DFS. Yesterday won the FanDuel Nuggets Celtics Showdown 2K. Wanted to thank you for doing this every day and teaching me about the NBA. Very, very nice to hear the one from Chris. I'm glad I read that because that was a long chat, and long chats, I never know if somebody's going to slip in something that I don't want to read out loud. I'm glad to hear that Chris is doing well with it. And Beasley off the bench seems to perform better. I mean, you don't really want guys off the bench if you can avoid it, but Beasley gets his minutes no matter what, and he does probably get a little more usage, but I don't think it's the way to view DFS personally. Sort by value now. See what we have in the top charts here. And we'll go game by game after that. Of course, I'll be on Stokastic today as well with my pal Josh Engelman at 5 o'clock. So if you want to see my takes, you can strap in for the next 40 minutes or so, and we'll get there. And of course, on Stokastic, you hear me volley back and forth with Josh at 5 p.m. Eastern today. All right, so we got Jonas Valanciunas, top protected player on the slate in terms of value, 79% for the field. I'm getting the 63%, which I think feels fine. I would certainly make the case here that you can want to get Jonas Valanciunas in more lineups than the 80%. I would say if you had to choose between 0% Jonas Valanciunas or 100%, I'd probably still go 100%. Kings seem a little bit less willing to move away from the minutes for him because they really have nobody else to go to as a backup center. They've signed Skal Labissiere because they're basically dead in the water now. If Sabonis misses more than the week that they're expecting right now, in terms of just having big men that could be out there playing capably. So for Jonas Valanciunas, as long as he doesn't get into foul trouble, it seems like he's in a good spot. His rates are not quite as good as they were in Washington. Court time, again, without Sabonis this year, 20% usage for Joe Val, 22% rebound rate, 11% assist rate, still 1.3 fantasy points a minute. So like he's very good. He's just not full upside like he was in Washington where he kind of would dominate the offense sometimes. So Joe Val, I think not a lock button play necessarily, but I would be happy to play, more than less because I think he's one of the better plays in the slate. Malik Beasley, who we talked about, 47% for the field. I'm getting him at 65%. Whether he starts, whether he plays off the bench, doesn't really matter. He'll find his way to high 20s minutes no matter what. Your big thing for Beasley is that if he does miss some shots, he's really getting there mostly through three-point scoring at this point, but has been a good three-point shooter around the year, does gain the most overall. Court time without Ivy and Tobias Harris. Beasley averages 1.02 fantasy points a minute without those two guys. And that's at 62% true shooting. So has been shooting very well. Not like he's able to, get less good shots because those guys not being in. So I think that's really it for Beasley. Good usage. If he doesn't hit his shots, though, this chalk could be not good. And I would say if he were to fail, probably means Asar Thompson had a better shot at getting there. Probably means, I guess, Tim Hardaway Jr. theoretically. Cade Cunningham putting up more points. Maybe Beasley doesn't hit his threes. Cade takes more usage. Duran getting more shots at the rim. Like, basically, if you don't play Beasley, you should be trying to get some other parts of Detroit in because they're playing a shitty Utah team who's going to be even worse than they would be normally. The starters basically not available. Beasley is a very important part of the slate where I think he's a good play. Getting him at 65% of the field's at 47, but in lineups without him, like you should be telling yourself other Pistons are going to get there, and that would probably allow you to jump the field if Beasley does fail. Quentin Grimes, getting him at 5x the field. Really don't love being here this much, coming after where he put up 40 real life points, 60 fantasy points over the weekend. That said, Grimes playing pretty well, in my opinion, and I guess not really my opinion, in the data, averaging 1.1 fantasy points a minute this year without Joel Embiid. For comparison, a guy like Kelly Oubre is averaging closer to 0.8 and change fantasy points a minute, 0.86 fantasy points a minute. So Grimes, to me, has been good in Dallas. He's been good so far in Philadelphia. I play Grimes more than I should in most slates. Of course, I don't play on the weekend, so I missed out on the big payday on Quentin Grimes over the weekend. For Quentin Grimes, though, think that he is a player that looks pretty solid to me, 5,800. Pretty big stand here, but he's going to be 8% owned. I'll live with the stand. If you get Paul George out, he'd look even better. Would certainly look better for Tyrese Maxey, for Oubre as well. But Quentin Grimes right now, I think a little bit too cheap for a guy if he's going to play mid-30s minutes. Your risk, too, for Grimes to be like Justin Edwards could play a few minutes more if Grimes were to fail. They need to get some more shots up from three. Maybe you just have somebody who's not going to actively take away like sometimes Grimes can. So that'd be your risk point for Grimes if he doesn't play well, is they could get Edwards taking more minutes away. Oubre downgraded. That's true, but doesn't always matter, but it was a midday downgrade. Had a lot of Isaiah Stewart pissed. He's questionable now. Why would you have a lot of Isaiah Stewart? He's like an okay value, but I don't know that that's a must-have play. You want to play starters and guys who are going to close. Like that's really, again, a really important part of DFS that I think people sometimes miss that I've been kind of trying to remind myself of because I do let my projections kind of do the work. But Isaiah Stewart, an okay value here at 3,400, but he literally doesn't project for 20 fantasy points, and I have him better projected than Stokastic. You shouldn't make a guy who's projected for less than 20 fantasy points the linchpin of your day. It's never a good idea. Onyeka Okongwu, obviously follow your heart, but I'm trying to give you good advice. Onyeka Okongwu getting 43% for me here, fields at 32%. Again, he's been your big winner overall in court time without the various Hawks who will not be playing today / the rest of their Hawks career. So Okongwu here, getting him a little bit less projected and less well projected compared to Stokastic, 35.8. They're at 36.4, but at 6,100, it's a nice salary for a guy playing about 30 minutes a game and producing fairly well. Okay, same thing. Just be cautious about the guys you're playing, Doug. Doug, you say a lot of dumb things, and I'm trying to save you from yourself, but more power to you. Play whatever the fuck you want. Justin Champagny, 19% here compared to the field's 10%. Champagny, another guy who does gain a good amount from the various Wizards being out. Doug, I don't care. That's still a lot. That's a lot of fucking Isaiah Stewart. I don't really care, though. I got to be honest. Take a breather. Isaiah Stewart here, looking okay. Champagny looking here. Various Wizards going to look okay here because you're missing Jordan Poole. You're obviously missing Kuzma, missing Malcolm Brogdon. The overall rate winner seems to be, we got Chris Middleton gaining about 1.3 fantasy points a minute overall in only about 60 minutes that he's played so far on the Wizards without Poole available. I think the Wizards are a team that you don't want to go nuts about no matter what for these guys. But Champagny is a guy at 3,600, looks okay. Just again, him and Isaiah Stewart, not really well projected plays. And if they're like the first thing that comes to mind for your slate, it's not really the way to play DFS. So Champagny getting 2x the field, 19%. Isaiah Stewart getting at 7%. That's what value is right now. Not really great 3K range value plays. And that's an important thing to learn about DFS. Walker Kessler, 3x the field here. Max Christie, 4x the field. DeMar DeRozan, 3x the field. So pretty big stands for these three guys. Kessler, I do think the minutes Stokastic has given him is a little bit high. He played about 25 minutes last game. Basically, if Kyle Filipowski gets hot behind him, Kessler's going to lose a few minutes because they do different things. Also, the Jazz are just not playing serious basketball that much. Starters last game, like John Collins put up over 40 fantasy points, but he only played 25 minutes. They jerked the starters around, played him kind of clip minutes last game. I don't really trust Utah, so I don't love getting 3x the field on Kessler. If Detroit fails, he'll do better. Duren will keep him close to the rim. I think that's a positive. But Kessler, pretty big stand here. I'm well projected. I get why, but I think the minutes are kind of high from Stokastic here. Max Christie playing good minutes for a team that's missing PJ Washington today, in addition to the various other Mavs. Mavs also lose Moses Brown, 10-day contract from expired. They're now trying to sign Kai Jones, and I think Kai Jones will play today. It doesn't really affect Max Christie directly, but point being is just the Mavs are kind of shorthanded now. So Max Christie, 5,300, playing well enough here. Have him at 30.2 fantasy points for today. Stokastic, 26.4. Really don't have a big lean for Max Christie, but I think he works well on the price tag right now on a slate where there isn't really great value and you don't really want to play, again, a lot of the Isaiah Stewarts, a lot of the Justin Champagnes here. Chris Middleton getting him about 3x the field, a little bit more than that. For Chris Middleton, I don't love the minutes. I think is really my concern for him. As I talked about, though, he does produce really well per minute without some of the starters there. He's also a guy that we know in his time in Milwaukee, when Giannis is out back in the day, there'd be a lot of time where you'd want to cram in Chris Middleton. I think the issue for Middleton is the minutes, really. And I really don't know that I'm going to hold this 20% ownership, but his rates do jump out. He's averaged 1.3 fantasy points per minute without Jordan Poole out there. That does matter for a Wizards team that at this point, you don't really have any legit guys. They're playing Miami. He's going to make it tough to get up shots for some of the shittier Wizards younger guards and wings. So I think Middleton at 5,700 worth some shots, but probably not worth more than 3x the field like I'm getting right now. Najee Marshall, another guy who can play big minutes, also at risk to lose some minutes if a guy like Dante Exum gets hot. Najee Marshall does a little bit of everything. Then he also has games where he shoots like 1 for 12s. He did one game last week when Najee Marshall was in a ton of my lineups. Forget if he was actually chalky for the field or not, if he just ruined my night. But Najee Marshall does play a good amount, contributes some assists, a little bit of rebounds, a little bit of stock upside as well. So Najee Marshall, a decent value play at 5,400 right now because we just don't have great value on the slate. We're going to go game by game here, guys. Before we do that, we are so close to 1,000 subs, so please make sure to hit the like button. Please subscribe, leave a comment. Even though I don't want to talk at length with you about shitty players too much, I do try to do the best I can to highlight what matters in NBA DFS, of course, on a given slate. And every day here, we're doing the work comparing my projections that I labor over the entire day, probably too much in a given day with how stupid the NBA changes things. But that's the thing here every day. Of course, thanks to our friends at Unabated as well. 20% off, link down below. You'd be up $40,000 if you're betting like Unabated tells you to. 30 minutes for a tip off every single day. We'll talk more about it in a moment here, but do check out Unabated, a great product. Link down below. You get the rest of the season for under $500 as well. And frankly, if you put in the work, you will make that money back in betting if you do. Again, put in the work. And Stokastic, you guys will see more from them in a moment with the Sims. Of course, the ownership data I show you here, their projections, get all that stuff for yourself for 15% off. I'll link down below as well. But please do one of the things here. You got 3 options. Choose a doorway and follow it. I don't know. That's like everybody does. They show you 3 doors. You got to take 1 door. I think that's just a rule. Golden State, 120.3 implied points. Charlotte, 107.8 implied points. No big stands here. I saw the Badge Bros show before this one. Of course, our friends John Warner and Nez talking about the slate. And the chat was like, Steph Curry, home field advantage coming back to Charlotte. His dad's there. His brother, like whatever. If you want to play Steph Curry for that reason, you can. He doesn't project that well today. Only about a 5x value, a little bit less than that. But as we talk about 4.9x value, 5x value, doesn't really matter that much. Those guys are all in the playable range. If Steph hits his, outside outcome, his, higher level outcomes there on the standard deviation scale, it doesn't really matter what his price tag is and where he's at. So that said, last time he hit huge, he was in the mid 8K range. Now we're at 9,200. So you are paying a premium here for Steph returning to Charlotte. But that said, 5% for the field. I'm at a little bit higher, 5%. Not really a big stand for me for Steph, but people love to play narratives. You got a narrative for yourself here. Brandon Podziemski, the guy who seems to maintain the most from Jimmy Butler coming in here, basically ran the race for Golden State without Kuminga, and some of the some of the Warriors no longer on the team, like Dennis Schroeder. So Podziemski's held up pretty well over the course of the various moving parts of the roster. Projected to still play 30 minutes. Jimmy Butler coming off a little bit of an injury. How much it matters to Jimmy Butler, who knows? But at this point, Podziemski, I think, is the guy I'm getting for the most part from the Warriors on most slates. Not a big stand here, getting him at 15%. Would love to keep that pretty close to around the field here because this is the first game of the slate. We could have a lot of value opening up later on. And a guy like Podziemski kind of is one of those easier plays to lose, or if you don't get him early on, probably something better will open up later on the slate from the various injuries and all of that. But that said, Podziemski, 10%, 15%, I think is not bad here. Low on Butler, low on Draymond. I really don't have anything more to say about those guys than that. Charlotte, nobody looks good for me here. Gave these guys the usual rates they would have without Brandon Miller and Trey Mann. Two guys who are not going to probably play the rest of the year. I mean, Miller definitely won't. Trey Mann, I assume, won't. LaMelo Ball doesn't gain much from that. Actually loses a little bit in assist upside from some of the various Hornets not being out there. Miles Bridges gains a little bit more in usage, but really his big jump is when LaMelo Ball's out, as we talk about whenever that's the case, which is often enough on stream here. Mark Williams splitting minutes with Nurkic, with Diabate. None of those guys look too good overall. Really think the spot is not a great one against Golden State. Total's not that great either. A little bit of a pace up, but Charlotte, I guess if you want to play Seth Curry for the same narrative reasons you play Steph Curry, you can, but nothing looks that great. Portland, Jeremy Grant out. DeAndre Ayton still out. Robert Williams out, for whatever that matters. We did have an outlier day over the weekend for Denny Avdia, who generally is the one who wins the most from Jeremy Grant being off the court. Avdia projects well for me here. 37 fantasy points. Field is going to be at, or Stokastic projections at 35.5. 20% ownership for the field. I'm getting with 32. Same thing with Grimes, though. I don't love playing the guy after he hit just over the weekend. Box score chases, we'll see that a little bit more, but Avdia projects well for me. Didn't really do anything to goose him too much. But he and Shaedon Sharpe are the guys that I think look the best from not having Ayton, from not having Grant out there. Similarly, Anthony Simons gets worse, basically. I think he gains a little bit in usage, but loses assist upside because Avdia, Shaedon Sharpe, everybody else starts shooting a little bit more from Jeremy Grant's vacated usage. So to me, Anthony Simons never really a player I get that much of. He's now pretty high priced. If you want to get there, you can, but he looks like one of the worst values on the slate for me. Portland just running these dudes into the ground, 43 minutes yesterday. I mean, they don't really shorten rotations too much. So if everybody's active, I'd expect them to play a good amount. But 43 minutes was not. Let me look at the popcorn machine here. Yeah, they played overtime yesterday too. I mean, look, they already had a chance to downgrade these guys and rule them out. But yeah, you're talking 40 minutes for all the starters here. They're generally playing high 30s. It does seem like a day where you'd want to give a few more minutes to some of the other guys, but like you're not going to sit Shaedon Sharpe for Chris Murray too much or Banton, I don't think. At least they haven't historically. So I think you're expecting them to still play, more likely mid 30s minutes instead of high 30s minutes. But yeah, it's a lot of minutes to play yesterday, and does seem like it would be smart for them to rule a few guys out, but who knows? Clingan managed to foul in 11 minutes. There you go. He's my boy. Help you cash out this weekend. Look, I like Avdia a lot when you get Grant out. I would worry, though. I think that's a fair point to bring up. Like, there aren't a lot of teams on the back end of a back-to-back today, so maybe be mindful of not going crazy on Avdia like I am, and frankly, Field being at 1/5 Avdia does feel like a lot. They don't have options, and they have options on the roster they could play, but they don't seem to trust. Like Banton, I feel like I would rule a bunch of guys out, play Banton 30 minutes and just see what he can do. And that'd be great for fantasy because he's such a great producer, but they never seem to do that. So Portland, a weird team, but if ever there were a way for them to get ruled out late, it would probably be a day to do it. Philadelphia, no Joel Embiid for the rest of the year, so just strap in for that accordingly. Tyrese Maxey looking a little bit better for Stokastic than me. I have him about 3.1 fantasy points lower. I'm higher on Paul George by 0.3, much higher on Quentin Grimes. Again, I feel a little bit naked with the Grimes exposure, but he has averaged 1.1 fantasy points a minute, with Joel Embiid not in. So Grimes, to me, always a player I get a lot of. I will just warn you accordingly. Big thing for him is that he adds a little bit in every category. And the way my projections work, like when you have a ton of stats that are available and you have a guy that contributes rebounds, contributes assists, contributes blocks and steals, and you have then Joel Embiid not available, the stats that Philadelphia normally gets have to go somewhere. And I think Quentin Grimes, to me, will end up with a lot. George is a Q tag. I really have no lean. He's in the projection set, so he's not a Q tag. So that's what it is. But your guess is as good as mine. Obviously, if he doesn't play, everybody here looks better, but Paul George, if he does play, 15% ownership feels fair to me. These guys all look good. Really the main thing to some extent. And I would say if my Grimes projection is wrong, and there's a decent chance it is, Oubre will look a little bit better. George will look a little bit better. Maxey will look a little bit better. These guys, I think, good total, not a great total. Good matchup, not a great matchup. You kind of want one guy to be out here at least for that to look, more meaningful on the amount of Philadelphia you would get. And I think for right now, these guys all look appropriate besides Grimes, who I'm just really overexposed on. Washington, 104.8 implied points. Miami, 112.8. So a pace down spot here, losing about 5 possessions for the Wizards today. No Jordan Poole, though. Does kind of mitigate that a little bit. But I'm getting a lot of Chris Middleton, as I mentioned, 20%. Don't love that with him not likely playing more than 25 minutes in most situations. He has averaged 1.3 fantasy points a minute without Poole out there, so that's really the main thing standing out. I'll take the shot on him a little bit. I think 20%, probably not so much. I think Middleton, if you're in a lineup here where you need something unique, taking the shot that maybe can somehow get to 28 minutes and be the thing that like matters to keep them competitive versus Miami, I think that's where Middleton makes some sense. Sarr, I am lower on by a good amount, about 4 fantasy points lower than Stokastic. Keyshawn George, a little bit higher on, about 1.5 higher. Justin Champagny, as we talked about, as a value. He and Isaiah Stewart are really the only two values that look okay, even though neither is like a guy that's going to close or start, so you really don't want to play a ton of them. Really, the Wizards not that great with this total. Jordan Poole, I think, in a better matchup would open up some more. But you can take shots on these guys because Poole's absence has opened up a lot theoretically. It's just that nobody really stands out that meaningfully right now. Miami on their side has talked about no Khalil Ware today, so Bam Adebayo does look a little bit better as a result. You probably see more minutes for Haywood Highsmith, who already last game, even with Khalil Ware, played, I think, over 30 minutes again. They keep bringing him in for defensive swaps. Rozier got in the rotation last game as well. Jaime Hawkins is out, so he's going to stay in the rotation, would be my guess here. Andrew Wiggins is a Q tag. If he were out, would open up more minutes for guys like Highsmith. I guess Alec Burks, theoretically, Duncan Robinson a little bit more. Nobody here looks that great besides Bam to me, who I'm getting at 29%, the field at 19%, Hero with the field's 15%, but not a bad spot at all. Obviously, you're facing a Washington team that's not very good defensively, does play with a pace-up situation, gaining about 4 possessions. So Heat, not bad plays, I would say. Hero and Adebayo in particular, and Wiggins, if he goes, I think is worth exposure as well, getting more than 2x the field to him. Houston, 109.3 implied points. A lot of Q tags on this team as well. Fred VanVleet still out. Not a great total for Houston at 109.3 implied points. They are 10-point dogs against OKC. Alperen Sengun does fit that kind of criteria of players that does well against OKC, can rebound, can stretch them out a little bit, hit some threes, at least theoretically make some plays at the top of the key. So for Sengun, I don't mind being a little bit above the field. Looked like I was going to get more of him today. Everything's kind of come down a little bit with the minutes being lower for Houston. And Houston, not on a back-to-back. They played Saturday. Rotation for Houston, there was something weird about them with Saturday. Oh, was that Sengun played so much on Saturday? Sengun played 37 minutes, which doesn't normally get that high. Stokastic has got him about 6 minutes lower than he did play over the weekend. So Sengun, maybe against OKC, a lot of big men. If he stays out of foul trouble, I think getting a few more minutes than they're expecting here, that could matter. But really, Houston, I don't know. It's not a good total, but if they hang in there versus OKC, they probably had multiple guys give you a decent day. So you have an under 5% Sengun, under 5% Thompson, under 5% Jalen Green. You know, I think these guys are worth a little bit more. Well, the guy who's getting ownership is Tari Eason, and I think that looks okay at 5,500. I think there's something to Houston today, but they're just not owned. But they don't project that poorly. Highsmith had 37 minutes and a robust 12 DK points. Bad even for him. Is that true? Because I think he had another good game recently when he was playing. Let's see. They played New York yesterday. He had 8 points and 1 peripheral, it looks like. Played 37 minutes versus the Knicks. And that was yesterday. So they are in the back half of back-to-back as well. In Miami, I guess, is another team that could rule some guys out later, perhaps. Game before last, Highsmith played 29. And then fucking Kyle Anderson played 6 again. Yeah, Highsmith was okay versus Indiana the game before last. I mean, the one game that he really played well was, of course, the Kyle Anderson chalk day, but he did produce a lot in that game. I think he's producing a little bit better right now, but yeah, Highsmith is not like a priority play for the record. So OKC on their side. Nothing looking that good here. Obviously, Houston, not a high-paced team, good defense, so nothing too surprising. But Jalen Williams coming off the outlier day over the weekend, not getting much of him. SGA getting only 2%, Fields at 6%. If Houston keeps this competitive, like you could get a Rockets player hitting, you could get a Thunder player hitting, and the field's not there. So kind of not totally analogous, but kind of like the Boston-Cleveland game. The last time we had a video on Friday where obviously you had a few Boston players out, so that helped a little bit, but That game on paper, like nobody projected super well. The total wasn't crazy high, but it's two teams that are, top of their division, top of their conference. I think that you could get that kind of thing here for Houston OKC, and nobody's going to be there. So I'll just say that out loud. The totals really don't look great for the game. So you balance your risk accordingly. Speaking of games where the totals do look good, Atlanta 121.5 implied points, Memphis 130 implied points. Two of the highest combined totals here I think there's been all year. Memphis's individual team total here is I think the highest we've had all year as well. Atlanta getting a good amount of these guys overall. As I mentioned, Trae Young's rates are not great overall. Court time without DeAndre Hunter, without Jalen Johnson, without Bogdanovic. Add on Georgie Yang to that, and the assist rate comes down even more for Trae Young. He's only averaged 1.1 fantasy points a minute without those guys. That said, I don't want to get no Trae Young on a slate where we have this being such a high total game and one of the highest total games of the year. So I did keep Trae Young flat, getting him at 8%, feels at 12%. That feels good. Dyson Daniels, I think I want to get above the field on, getting him about 1.5% more with 23% exposure in my top 150. Stokastic has 21% for the field. If I did kind of flip the rates to what they actually are for Atlanta, I would get an ungodly amount of Dyson Daniels, an ungodly amount of Okongwu, and like no Trae Young. So I'm keeping this where it is so I can still get more Daniels, still get more Okongwu, but at least get some Trae Young is the way that I approach projections overall. So if you use my data, which you can get down below, by the way, joining, you want to see the data I'm showing you on screen, that's a Squirt Squad tier. If you want to actually export the data into a Stokastic sim or whatever else out there, that's a Squirt Squad VIP tier. But join down below. Discord as well for $5. You want to join, hit those, hit that, really only one button hit. The join button, hit that button down below. But anyway, Atlanta right now, a priority team for me. Not so much priority for Zachary Rizache. I've been low on him all year. He doesn't gain a whole lot from the various Hawks who are not available. Does gain some minutes, though, from Yang not being in, so won't totally poo-poo him, but I'd rather take a shot at Terrence Mann, who's actually averaged 1.1 fantasy points a minute without basically Niang on the court has been the big change for him. Think the Hawks, something here should hit. It's a really high total spot, and this game, too, it's a lot of ownership, so if the game does bust, a good portion of the field will probably have at least one Hawk, I think, will probably be the way that works out. Memphis on their side, you don't have a ton of ownership despite the high total. That's one of those days where it might be worth just boosting the total a little bit manually to try to get there. Something I do play with in my data when I'm running my lineups for the final lineup set. So just something I'll throw out to you guys as well. But John Morant here, 11% for the field. I'm at 5. Jaren Jackson, 13% for the field. I'm at 8. Desmond Bane, 18% for the field. I'm at 5. Santi Aldama's a Q tag right now, midday downgrade. If he were out, all the various Grizzlies would look better, but as it is right now, these guys don't come up a whole lot for a team with a 130-point implied total. And Jaren Jackson, I think Stokastic, given a little bit of a short shrift in minutes. He's played mid-30s in enough games lately. So I think you can get here more than it looks, but the ownership is pretty muted. I would say try and at least get with the field on the top guys. Probably a good move. Sacramento, we got one. Oh my God, scroll up. 116.8 implied points. I just wanted to align perfectly. There we go. Please go. There we go. 116.8 implied points. Going to make up some time here because we are late for the best bets with Unabated. Zach LaVine, as I mentioned before, getting about 31% usage in court time without, again, De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis. Really, Sabonis part's the key thing for him. DeMar DeRozan without Fox and Sabonis getting about 28% usage. Let me make sure that's the right number here. No, 29% usage, 30% assist rate, 1.15 fantasy points per minute. So I think your big winner from no Sabonis, or big winners, are LaVine and DeRozan. Monk gets a little bit less usage, probably gets a more flowing LaVine, flowing DeRozan's way. Joe Val also going to take a good amount away at the rim as well. Don't think he's going to be quite as good of a permanent player as he was in terms of his Washington stints, but should still be about 1.2, 1.3 fantasy points per minute. I have him shooting for the lower side here, but I think the minutes are pretty secure for him at this point. I guess the one way that it could get weird is Dallas is lacking a true big man now. Moses Brown no longer on the team. Kai Jones, I guess, is going to play his Moses Brown impression now. But they could go small on Dallas' side, and maybe Joe Val would get played off the court there for a Trey Lyles, I guess a Jay Crowder, theoretically, who's technically being listed as center here. They could go small at the 5 is your one risk, but I don't think they will. So Joe Val, 79% for the field. I'm at 63. Really, the Kings, to me, I think one of the most important teams in the slate, even though I am fading Malik Monk. Dallas, a little bit up on Kyrie Irving, 10% compared to the field's 8. Najee Marshall, 31% compared to the field's 26. I don't get Klay Thompson, and I can live with that on any slate. We got Max Christie, getting him about 4x the field as well. Max Christie, I think at this point, really the poor man's Quentin Grimes, does a little bit of everything, playing good minutes. 0.9 fan sports minutes is where I have him at today, with just losing Washington is a really big part for Christie, I think, of the equation. Court time without Washington and also without Luka Doncic, which doesn't matter anyway. Christie this year has averaged 0.87 fantasy points a minute with 18% usage, 8% rebound rate, 14% assist rate. Basically enough of a player here at 30 projected minutes or so. I think Dallas, an important team here. Kyrie at 9,500, though, probably the one I want to get to the least. But it is a competitive game versus Sacramento. So this might be one of the spots where we sometimes talk about Kyrie just kind of letting other guys do the work versus shitty teams. He probably does have to push the usage a little bit higher here. And I would say if he does succeed in a meaningful way, if he gets you to like 60 fantasy points, high 50s, that probably means that Najee Marshall did a little bit less. Max Christie did less. So you could get some leverage on some of the other semi-chalk here. In particular, Najee Marshall, I think. Marshall's biggest fail switch would be like the way that he would not get you there would be Exum getting more minutes, Maxence Prosper somehow getting more minutes, something like that. Chose to be cucked by LeVert. LeVert doesn't look that good for me based on what he's done so far in Utah without Niang out there, but you could take the shot for sure. He should get more usage no matter what. Detroit, 121 implied points here. Another chalky team for me. A lot of Beasley. Fields getting 48%. I'm getting 65%. My top 150. Asar Thompson, 19% for me, 22% for the field. So another big stand there. Thompson, the minutes still a little bit capped, but he's going to hit his upper band of minutes probably in a day where Tobias Harris doesn't play. Jalen Duren gained some from not having Tobias Harris out there as well. Would say that Cade Cunningham, probably a better play than I'm giving him as well. Fields getting 25%. I only have 8. Detroit, really appealing team. Nice team total here. Cade is your pay-up option on the slate, so he certainly should have one of the higher upsides. Would still think he probably hits a ceiling that matters less than SGA does, but he does project better than SGA. And Utah on their side, not a lot of ownership coming here, despite the fact you are missing some of the key guys there, like Lauri Markkanen, who's been out for about 4 or 5 games now. Jordan Clarkson out as well, has been out for I think 4 out of the last 5 games. But Utah here getting Walker Kessler a good amount. Minutes are a concern for me here, so I probably won't hold at 3x the field with the field at 9% ownership. Keontae George around 10% ownership feels right. Basically gains the most in usage because of not having Clarkson in. He's going to come off the bench and pretty much get every shot possible up and still probably play high 20s minutes, if not low 30s. So Keontae George, I think, is your play here. If you get Colin Sexton out, Bryce Sensabaugh should pick up the start and will look closer to playable. But I think really not a lot great for Utah, even though I don't know, it feels like it should be a better spot with the guys they have out, with Collins, Markkanen, and Clarkson out. Davion Mitchell's questionable. If he and Wiggins are out, do I like Burks? I don't think that Wiggins would help out Burks that much. I think Burks would be okay, but he's not really a priority Heat player. Like, you really, to love Burks, you would need like a hero to be out, I think, along with those guys, because then you get usage plus minutes. As it is, Burks could pick up some minutes. Let me look at his projection. I'm at 10.5 at 14 minutes. So like if you give him 28 minutes, he only gets you to about 22 fantasy points. So he'd be playable at that range, but like you really want somebody who's got high usage out. I guess Wiggins would qualify. Yeah, I don't know. I think Burks could get closer to playable with both those guys being out. One of them being out wouldn't matter that much for him though. All right. So that's it for the projections portion of things, at least my projections portion of things. Now it's time to learn about Unabated, their conditional NBA projections, which are making a lot of people a lot of money out there. I know some of you guys signed up in February, and I'm very appreciative of it. But let's learn more about Unabated's conditional NBA projection, how they could change your world of betting of NBA. And let's check that video out right now. Oh, you got expert NBA projections, and of course the big deal here, the conditional component of things. Who's in, who's out? Lately, it's going to be DeJounte Murray every time. But you can see here the data you get, different projection sets based on the questionable players. If you want to transact quickly on betting markets, you do with Unabated's data. Same thing for DFS as well. Real-time NBA news. If you don't want to be on Twitter anymore, all the Nazi stuff makes you uncomfortable, let's get your alerts on Discord from Unabated a little bit faster than you getting on Twitter as well. And of course, the graphs. Everybody loves the graphs on Unabated. And now you get graphs, as many as you want. Graphs, a buffet of graphs. What Unabated wants to sell it as. premium live streams, some of which compete with me, but you can watch them instead if you're sick of me for a day, and then you'll come back. Come back begging. Let's share this tab here. Of course, here's the money you would have won if you had placed all the bets 30 minutes before tip-off, 5% or higher edge, $100 units. You'd be up about $41,000. I think might be closer to 42. I forget the exact number here. And that's really, again, that's only the bets 30 minutes before tip-off. You also took the set when their projections drop every day around 4:30 p.m. East Coast time. You'd be up another $38,000 or so. So that's really, again, $100 units. Not everybody's betting $100 units, but just keep that in mind here. This is what people are doing literally for a living. I was going to the Unabated Discord today. A lot of people out there rely on this stuff on a daily basis and are sweating it with a lot more money in the line than you and I have. And that's really the biggest thing I think you're looking for in betting is a tool. Allows you to work fast, get data in easily, get your bets in easily, and also know that you're not using something made by an idiot. And I think Unabated passes that sniff test 10 times over. So check it out for yourself. Again, link in the description. Go over there. You'll save $30 a month or 20%, depending on the different packages. But do check it out for yourself. And it does support the show here and show Unabated that this channel is a worthwhile place for them to do business, which is what we're hoping for. All right, let's see what we got. I'm sure, Steven, I could hear your war chant already. All right, let's sort for our best bets here. And again, this green part here is the expected value to talk about. 5% or higher is what we're looking for 30 minutes before tip-off. It's hit the kind of numbers that they've hit, so just keep that in mind when we go through Unabated. We got Bub Carrington over 10.5 points, gaining some usage with Jordan Poole out. 14.6% EV for this one at -110 odds for Bub Carrington over 10.5 points. That one's on DK Sportsbook. Looking good in all the books, though. PrizePicks and Underdog, you can take over 10.5 on those. And FanDuel over 10.5 at -113 odds. Gets you 13% EV. So Bub Carrington over 10.5 points on your pick'em sites and your regular sports books as well. Justin Champagny, we got over 6.5 points. Looking good in your pick'em sites. 12.9% EV for over 6.5 points for Champagny on those. Not available in the regular sports books. So Champagny here, good in pick'ems over 6.5 points. Tejan Salon under 5.5 points. Take the lower on Underdog where you get 10.6% EV. Not available anywhere else though, but Salon on Underdog under 5.5 points, 10.6% EV. SGA under 30.5 points, plus 100 odds on FanDuel gets you 9.5% EV. You can also bet the lower on Underdog, lower than 31.5 on Underdog also looks playable at their usual 118 or -118 pick'em odds. But SGA unders on 30.5 or 31.5 on FanDuel or Underdog. Najee Marshall over 13.5 points, plus 100 odds. The guy gets shots up when there aren't a lot of Mavs available. He sometimes, as I mentioned, will miss all of them and it'll drive you nuts. But today, take the over 13.5 points, plus 100 odds on FanDuel, and also good on PrizePicks, where it's over 13 points for Najee Marshall, getting you 6.8% EV. Malik Beasley under 19.5 points. We don't love to see that. 8.1% EV. Maybe make a hedge if you're playing a lot of Beasley in DFS. Under 19.5 points, -105 odds on DraftKings gets you 8.1% EV, and you probably don't want anywhere else. Last but not least, for points bets, Isaiah Hartenstein under 10.5 points, looking good on PrizePicks. 7.1% EV for Hartenstein under 10.5 on PrizePicks, but not good anywhere else. Rebounds coming up next here. Let's make sure we're pulling in all the bets. If you're wondering why the market's a little bit short here on Unabated, just make sure you scroll all the way down to get everything pulled in and then just resort accordingly. Might not even have to resort, but I'm clicking this button anyway. There we go. And of course, conditional projections here. You get the various projection sets for Paul George, Davion Mitchell, Ja Morant, Kelly Oubre, Colin Sexton, Amin Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Alperen Şengün. That is too many questionable guys. Your best bet for rebounds, under 11 rebounds for Isaiah Hartenstein. Looking good on PrizePicks, 27.2% EV. Very high EV number on PrizePicks right now. Not available anywhere else. So Hartenstein under 11 rebounds, get it on PrizePicks if you can. Quentin Post under 4.5 rebounds, looking good at -113 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook, 13.7% EV. Looking at the pick'em sites as well, under 4.5 rebounds for Post. Quentin Post, that is, on there, looking playable. And on DraftKings, the Grand Slam, all of them looking playable today for Quentin Post under 4.5 rebounds, anywhere you can get it. Kason Wallace under 3.5 rebounds, 13.4% EV on PrizePicks. DraftKings and FanDuel bettable as well, under 3.5 on there. A little bit better EV on DraftKings, but Kason Wallace under 3.5 rebounds on your pick'em sites, well, I guess on PrizePicks and on DK and FanDuel. under 3.5 rebounds for Kason Wallace. Spencer Dinwiddie under 2.5 rebounds, plus 105 odds on DraftKings, get you 12.7% EV, and it's not available anywhere else, so take it on DraftKings. Dinwiddie under 2.5 rebounds. Kyrie Irving over 5 rebounds, looking good on PrizePicks with 12.3% EV, but not playable anywhere else. Onyeka Okongwu under 9.5 rebounds. I don't love to see that, but that's on PrizePicks, 10.3% EV for Okongwu today. Look, a lot of points in that game, maybe not a lot of rebounds. Okongwu here under 9.5 points, 10.3% EV. And Mark Williams under 11 rebounds, 10.3% EV on PrizePicks. And that one is bettable on DraftKings and FanDuel as well. For Mark Williams, not available on Underdog, though. Underdog killing these lines fast. Assists coming up next. We'll do PRAs and, of course, a DFS sim to close out on Stokastic. And then I'll be on the deeper dive at 5 o'clock Eastern. So tune into that as well. Of course, basketball never stops. Also looking at MLB today because I'm hoping I'll be doing something for MLB, but I don't really know yet. I was playing with my Excel, though, and tough to MLB data. I got to figure out I got to redo a lot of stuff. We got FanGraphs, though. Great site. Great site for your MLB data. Assists. We got Buddy Hield under 1.5 assists. Looking good right now on PrizePicks and Underdog. 15.3% EV on your pick'em sites, but you can't get them on the sportsbook. So Buddy Hield under 1.5 assists on your pick'em sites, PrizePicks and Underdog. Alex Caruso, we got over 2.5 assists, looking good on Underdog, 14.5% EV. Nowhere else, though. Only Underdog for the higher on 2.5 assists for Alex Caruso. Quentin Post under 1.5 assists, looking good on both pick'em sites, PrizePicks and Underdog, not available on the sportsbooks. Dyson Daniels under 4.5 assists, 12.9% EV on PrizePicks, not looking good anywhere else, so you could take it on FanDuel if you wanted. Jonas Valanciunas over 2.5 assists, minus 105 odds on DraftKings Sportsbook. Gets you 11.8% EV, but that one is not available anywhere else. Only on DraftKings for Joe Val over 2.5 assists. Draymond Green over 5.5 assists. I don't love that one. Draymond losing a lot of stats to the various new Warriors and guys like Pajemski. But Draymond Green over 5.5 assists, 11.2% EV on FanDuel and playable on DraftKings and PrizePicks as well. Draymond Green over 5.5, one of the better bets on the day. Isaiah Hartenstein, we got Hartenstein under 3.5 assists, looking good on PrizePicks, but not anywhere else for Isaiah Hartenstein under 3.5 assists. And last but not least, we got PRAs here. Of course, a lot more bets for you at Unabated. I only show you the top pick'em sites and sportsbooks, but if you want all your other various sportsbooks out there, you can search them yourself at Unabated or to sim them out here like we do and have them sorted in. But here we're only showing you the top ones that everybody's got access to, so just keep that in mind. All right. All right, Isaiah Hartenstein under 25.5 PRAs. Lots of unders for Hartenstein today, which makes sense with Chet Holmgren in. 22.3% EV for Hartenstein on PrizePicks, not available anywhere else. So Hartenstein under 25.5 PRAs on PrizePicks if you can get it. One of the best EV bets on the day. Tajon Salon under 10.5 assists, or 10.5 PRAs, excuse me. Really easy to hit the assist number. 10.5 PRAs for Salon on Underdog, 18.3% EV, the lower there. Not good anywhere else, though, for Tajon Salon. Draymond Green over 20.5 PRAs, looking best on DraftKings at minus 120 odds, over 20.5 PRAs, over 21 PRAs, good on PrizePicks still, and you probably don't want Underdog. FanDuel as well, looking okay. We got Dante Exum, 11.7% EV for him, over 12.5 PRAs on Underdog, looking the best line here. Still playable on FanDuel, where it's 10% EV, and good on PrizePicks as well for over 13 PRAs for Dante Exum. Quentin Post under 15.5 PRAs, 10.6% EV on Underdog for the lower on there for Quentin Post. Looking okay on DraftKings as well, 7.7% EV for Quentin Post under 15.5 PRAs. Jalen Williams under 30.5 PRAs, minus 115 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Gets you 10% EV. And that's the only place you'd want to take that Jalen Williams under on 30.5 PRAs. And SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander under 42.5 PRAs, looking good on PrizePicks and Underdog as well as FanDuel under 42.5 PRAs for SGA on all those places. PrizePicks, Underdog, and FanDuel. There we go. Again, go check out Unabated. Really great tool. More for you throughout the day. Again, 30 minutes before tip-off is going to be your highest EV time to get there if you want to go place a bunch of bets for yourself. So check it out. Link down below for Unabated. Get 20% off with the promo code SPLASH. But check the link down below no matter what to go over there and see what Unabated's got for you. Let's go to Stokastic. Let's sim some lineups here for the final stage of our journey. And I'll go over to Stokastic and hang out with Josh Engelman at 5 o'clock. Let's build 5,000 lineups here. We'll have them compete 10,000 times. We'll see what looks the best. It's found that they're closing the branch I work at. I don't know. Sorry, QT. That's a bummer. I mean, look, Great time to hop to the world of betting. No, it's an awful thing here. I'm sorry to hear that. It's tough. It's a tough job market for a lot of different people out there, so I get it. But stay tough. Invest in yourself. Maybe invest in Unabated. I don't know. But, good luck no matter what. QT, one of our regulars here, so I hope he's doing all right. Hope you got somebody to talk to besides a YouTube chat about that. I don't know what the best way to reply to that is. But you guys know. But I'm accustomed to disappointment as well. I have no fear. I can't even get Underdog to give me a new deal. Well, I can get them to give me a new deal, but not at the money that I'm remotely worth compared to every other advertiser here. So we all have our failings. I get it. Speaking of, though, Stokastic, 15% off link in the description. All their promos are gone right now, so please take advantage of it, especially if you're one of the regulars, watch the deeper dive and all that. You want to get their tools for cheaper than they can advertise to you on stream or that I can even mention on a stream. Check out Stokastic, link down below, 15% off. Great deal for the recently unemployed. Sorry. We joke. We laugh. We laugh to keep ourselves from crying. If it's a bank, definitely rob it before it closes. Great advice. Enjoy the time off. Also great advice. You'll survive. I agree. That's all you can do. Collect some unemployment. Just don't tell Twitter. They'll be mean to you. Frankly, if ever any of you guys are unemployed, you should immediately file for unemployment and get money that you've already paid for, basically. That's the way that goes. So really, the company's paid for it, but take advantage of things. Don't fake disabilities. That's not splash play advice. I think the real splash play advice is, take the money as long as you possibly can get free money. I think that's generally the rule. All right. Top 150 lineups here. According to Stokastic data, and as I always mention here, my data not a part of this process. It's only Stokastic projections, which were just updated about an hour ago, so keep that in mind. You got Tyler Hero, your number one ROI lineup. Tyler Hero, Karis LeVert. There you go. Severance package. All right. There. Time to invest in Unabated then, actually. Probably invest in your mortgage or your rent first, but then Unabated. Tyler Hero, Karis LeVert, Terrence Mann, Asar Thompson, Alex Sarr, SGA, Najee Marshall, Jonas Valanciunas. So low-owned SGA here. Kind of feel like you want a rocket bring back there to kind of have the competitive game, but it's still a good lineup here. Certainly no issue with it. We got Tyrese Maxey, number 2. Tyrese Maxey, Desmond Bane, Asar Thompson, Zachary Rizashe, Onyeka Okongwu, Malik Beasley, Chet Holmgren, and Jonas Valanciunas. So Joe Val in both the top 2 so far. He's going to be in all top 5, spoiler alert. Tyrese Maxey at number 3, Karis LeVert, Denny Avdia, Zachary Rizashe, Jonas Valanciunas, Tyler Hero, Keegan Murray, and Asar Thompson. At number 4, you have Spencer Dinwiddie, Zach LaVine, Zachary Rizashe again, Paul George, Alex Sarr again, Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, and Jonas Valanciunas. So Jonas Valanciunas coming up in all these. And John Moran at number 5 with Karis LeVert, Najee Marshall, Rizashe yet again, Sarr yet again. Very French lineups here. So anti-American, many are saying. SGA, Asar Thompson, Jonas Valanciunas. So a lot of Asar, a lot of the Frenchies, a lot of Jonas Valanciunas. More Tyrese Maxey than I would have thought. Paying up for one guy seems to be the whole thing. Your top ROI players, according to Stokastic's top 150 lineups here. Alex Sarr is number 1, your only positive ROI player, even though it doesn't technically matter. It's about the directional accuracy, but still worth noting. Duncan Robinson at number 2 with a negative 2.6% ROI. Chet Holmgren at number 3, negative 4%. Same thing for Dinwiddie at number 4. Gershon Yabusele at number 5. That's surprising to me. Negative 6%. Like you would want Paul George out for that. Asar Thompson, negative 6.5%. Onyeka Okongwu, negative 7%. The best Hawk overall with the various Hawks not available in terms of permanent numbers is Okongwu. Your overall exposures in Stokastic's top 150 ROI lineups. Jonas Valanciunas, 91% exposure. Fields at 80%. I'm getting a little bit less of Jonas, but Stokastic is up on it. As I mentioned, really can't argue it. I would play Jonas Valanciunas on 100% of lineups more than I would play him in 0. But, like getting some different looks on this slate, I think is reasonable. Still, though, if you want to just lock button Jonas Valanciunas and see what you get, I wouldn't be mad at you for it. Onyeka Okongwu, getting 47% here, Fields at 33, so pretty big stand on him. Asar Thompson, 2x the field, 46% for Stokastic's top 150, Fields at 22. Zachary Rizashe, 39% compared to 28% for the field, so a big stand there. Malik Beasley, they're getting less of, but he's still 37% overall. He's your number 5 guy overall in terms of exposures. Alex Sarr, 33%. Dyson Daniels, 29%. So 3x the field on Sarr. About 10% more on Dyson Daniels. Highest leverage guys, Asar Thompson, Alex Sarr, Okongwu, Terrence Mann, who has produced 1.1 fantasy sports minute without George Niang for whatever that's worth in a small sample size. Riza Shea, 11% more than the field. Jonas Valanciunas, 10% more than the field. He's basically in every lineup. And Chet Holmgren, 10% more than the field. Barely being played by the field, but they want you to get 16%. Negative leverage guys, Malik Beasley, Paul George. You're barely getting any Paul George. Cade Cunningham, negative 10%. Kelly Oubre, negative 10. Trae Young, negative 9%. Justin Champagny, negative 9%. Desmond Bay, negative 7. I'm not on board with the Beasley fade. The rest of them I'm okay with. Probably, I'm low on Cade, so that's that. Lineups look different than I would have thought. So I'll give you guys my splash plays for the day as well. Before I do, though, one more quick ask. If you're new to the channel or if you haven't done it yet, please do hit the like button. Please subscribe. Both matter a lot for this channel. We're fighting right now because basically a channel that doesn't have a ton of evergreen window that only does live videos every day. I feel like we've hit a ceiling here, even though the click-through rate's looking good. You guys hitting the like button, I appreciate that. But please do keep supporting the channel. Hit the like button and subscribe. Get us to that 1K subs number. Maybe YouTube will finally stop fucking giving me the glass ceiling. I'm going against old school Triple H. Unabated here, 20% off. Link in the description. Get better at betting. You could be up $40,000+ right now if only you bet all the bets they give you 30 minutes before tip-off. And, of course, there's a lot more to do on there. Besides that, really do check it out for yourself. You want to get better in betting, it's sometimes as easy as just paying for the right product. Unabated is one way to do that. And Stokastic, 15% off. Link in the description. All their sim stuff, all their data down below. Only deal they have going, so please check it out. It supports the channel and supports you. So win-win for both of us. Let's shake hands on that. Get in there. Splash plays for the day for me, not Isaiah Stewart. I think Doug didn't like me pointing out that's a bad play, but it's not a good play. Jonas Valanciunas has to be one. Malik Beasley has to be another right now. Okongwu, Grimes, I would say would be other ones that I would go to a good amount. On the pay-up options or more pay-up options, Levine and DeRozan, I do think will be key plays for me. I would say that Dyson Daniels will be in a good amount of my lineups as well. It's a lot of guys already. So that's my splash plays for the day. Let me know yours. But join the Discord. Join down below. You want to see the data I look at here updated throughout the night. Check the Discord options when you join down below, or the rather YouTube channel options when you join down below. Gamble responsibly. It's always money time here. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play NBA. Check me out on the deeper dive in about 4 minutes here. I'll see you guys there. Enjoy your days. Good luck, even if you're playing Isaiah Stewart. Bye-bye.